Channeling Frank Gorshin this morning on Freedom and Prosperity Radio. Riddle me this, Batman. What sounds like a shutdown but isn't a shutdown unless you comply with it? Answer: Governor Northam's restrictions, which only come with the enforcement of the ABC Police and the Virginia Department of Health that can go after you. And, of course, we learned here in our flagship city of Charlottesville, if the ABC Police chase you across a parking lot with their guns drawn, it's no fun at all. Joining us to get into the governor's next wave surge, if you will, is Kerry Doughtery from WNIS in Norfolk, co-host of the Kerry and Mike show, published, and you can read her stuff at kerrydoughtery.com. How are you doing this morning? Welcome to Freedom and Prosperity Radio. Welcome back. How have you been?
I'm fine, Joe. How are you this Christmas week?
I know. Isn't it great? I hope you had an amazing Christmas and heading 2021 can't be worse, right?
Well, let's hope not. We just hope it doesn't say, hold my beer 2020. Wait till you see what's coming. We have the new we have all of a sudden the vaccines are out and suddenly there's new strains of the virus. So
yeah, funny how that happens.
Buckle up. Yeah, isn't that funny?
Well, let's start with the governor following the data until the press conference of a couple of weeks ago where I didn't hear any data, but I saw a very, very sad nurse telling us that we really are doing her a disservice by making her treat sick people. What happened to the data? It was all emotion.
Oh, and that's the thing. I mean, Ralph Northam likes to wear the mantle of being a doctor. I mean, he is the only physician, I believe, who's a governor in the United States, which makes his decisions seem all the more puzzling or just perhaps idiotic is a better word. But he always claims he's following the science and the data. But if you remember a few weeks back, he decided that the mask mandate, which there's a lot of debate about how much good the masks are doing. As you can see, we're in the middle of a spike. Everybody's wearing masks. But that's another thing. But he put masks on 5-year-olds. 5-year-olds, down from 10. Where was the science for that? He never explains. He issues his edicts. And now although I have a 5-year-old granddaughter and I keep trying to tell her, identify as 4, then you don't have to do it. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's absolutely zero science behind sticking masks on babies, but that's what he's done. And he has this 12 to 5 curfew, 12 midnight to 5 a.m. curfew. Where's the science behind a curfew? And actually, one of the members of the press corps who generally just slobber all over him and sort of beg him for more at every press conference, sort of, aren't you going to do anything? Aren't you going to punish us? What are you going to do to Hampton Roads? They actually said, well, why would you, what good will the curfew do? And he said, he quoted his parents, some Northern family bromide, nothing good happens after midnight. That's what he said. That's the science behind the fact that he's trying to lock Virginians in their homes between midnight and 5 a.m.
One of my alert listeners sent me that clip of him saying that, and when I heard it, I just said, "You've got to be kidding." Again, they followed the data, but he said, "I guess the governor was referring to the election results tabulations in Georgia."
Yeah, nothing good did happen then. This man, from the very beginning, though, Joe, he's never had any science behind anything. He became the first governor in America to close schools till the end of the year, and we can see how well that worked out. It emboldened the teachers' unions. They aren't ever going back up in Fairfax, I guess. And he also he magnanimously allowed us to still use the beaches, but for a while, we were forbidden to sit on the beach. Right. You could walk, you could run, you could swim, you could fish. But should you set your derriere in the sand, a police officer might come and ask you to please leave. Now, and that's the truth. Where was the science behind beach sitting? He never explained that. But that went on till Memorial Day.
There was a quick clip that I pulled out of the L.A. court cases where the district attorney admitted to the judge being pressed being shown science, data that said only about 10% of spread could be traced back to dining in a restaurant. And the DA actually said, well, it's really more about taking away things people might leave their homes to do, which, I find, then just man up and put us all under house arrest if it's this serious. But they don't do that. And let me pivot to this idea of using the ABC and the Virginia Department of Health. They're really using the permit culture of Virginia to, go after civilians that they can't go after. So they're going to go after the businesses we might participate in if they don't have us wearing masks or they don't keep us 6 feet apart. I know businesses that have received dozens of complaints to the Virginia Department of Health, and those are going to be used against them the next time their permits are up.
Exactly. And any restaurant that would refuse to comply, you lose your ABC license. You've lost your ability to earn a living. And, back during the early part of the lockdowns, when hairstylists couldn't work, they risked losing their licenses, their cosmetology licenses. And yet, I don't know if it was true up in Charlottesville. It certainly was down here. There was it was sort of like the speakeasies. There were like hair easies. You could go get your hair done in some hairdresser's garage where nobody paid income, no sales taxes were exchanged, and the sanitary conditions weren't as good as they were in a salon. But at least down here in Hampton Roads, the ladies all looked good.
Well, and Nancy Pelosi might stop by and get her hair done.
Yeah. Exactly.
But
that was a licensing thing too. I know that the hairdressers that I talked to, they were really worried. They had to feed their families somehow, so they were working, but they were terrified that they would lose their license.
So take all of what we're learning. I mean, we just had the most stunning morning where Phil Robertson and Alyssa Milano were both agreeing on something regarding.
What was that? I missed that.
They both said the same quote about the shutdowns and the economic problems, the problems that brought about the aid bill out of Congress were both caused by the government. And I'm sitting there saying, my gosh, what have we done? We've pushed Eric Clapton off of classic rock radio because he and Van Morrison are writing no lockdown songs. Have we pushed the sane Democrats and the sane Republicans into the same place? And what is that going to manifest in electorally in 2021 here in Virginia, in your view, Kerry?
Well, who knows? I do think that the GOP has an opportunity in next November, unless they blow it, as they so often do, by nominating nuts. But they actually have a chance to maybe take back one of the houses in the General Assembly, maybe even the governor's mansion. Who knows? Because I think ordinary Virginians ought to be terrified at how much power we have put in one person. And no one ever thought about this before. At least no one. I certainly didn't. The emergency powers we gave our governor, you assumed they'd be used perhaps after a hurricane.
Right.
If there was looting or some sort of civil problem, you had to lock everything down for a very short time to restore order. The idea that a governor could start issuing emergency orders in March and the following December and January, he's still controlling every aspect of Virginians' lives. It's really terrifying. And I think that perhaps a lot of Virginians who weren't very radical have become a little radicalized by it, and they don't want this anymore. And if we continue to allow Michael Bloomberg to bankroll all of our candidates, this is what we're going to get, more of this. I really do think if the Republicans can nominate a sane, solid, smart, moderate Republican, because no right-wing Republican is ever going to win statewide in Virginia. They just need to face that. There's a chance to take back the House of Delegates.
Well, let me ask you this. Pivot to that for a moment. Do you think we're done getting GOP nominees for governor? We've got a wild field, but I think as Terry McAuliffe sort of pretty much has sucked all the air out of that room. Even Mark Herring said, I'm going to run for re-election, never mind. But do you think it's just Amanda Chase and Kirk Cox from where you sit, Kerry?
That's all I've heard. If that's the case, it's just got Amanda Chase she may be a perfectly fine person, but she'd be a huge mistake. She'd lose by 20-some points, I would say, to any Democrat, because she's not going to. This is Corey Stewart 2.0. She's not going to win statewide, I don't think.
Speak to what you're feeling in the Hampton Roads area. It's the biggest city in Virginia that's not either governmentville or still trying to figure out if it's riot central. And you have sane people. Even Virginia Beach itself said no. We're not going to follow these gun grabs and. I think the sheriff there said, and this was the home of one of the shootings that they were using as a premise for all these gun grabs. It seems like there's so much sanity in the Hampton Roads area. Do you think it's going to manifest? Because if the Hampton Roads area moves, ideologically towards the center right, as certainly the military population there would lead you to believe. Even if they can't be active in politics, they can certainly get out and vote. If that starts to swing that way, and some of the movement the president has caused in the black communities continues, do you think that, because that's going to be the big swing? I think Hampton Roads is really ground zero for 2021 in Virginia.
Well, the problem is, of course, the second district reelected Elaine Loria. I mean, think about that. The second district should be solidly Republican, and it's not. Virginia Beach, I believe, went for Biden, didn't we? You're catching me.
Well, I'm not. Yeah, I'm just saying that if for the House races, I'm really now focusing in on can a Kirk Cox make bones there in the gubernatorial race and break off that corner of that crescent?
I think he can, and I think that we have Jason Miyares here, he's my delegate actually, is running for Attorney General. He's really solid. I hate to lose him in the House of Delegates, but our district is really Republican. I think that the people down here are pretty measured. They're not flying Confederate flags. This is not that part of Virginia, but this is fairly conservative area, very pro-military. The defund the police stuff is not, and the statue toppling is not winning any votes down here, I don't believe.
Well, and that's really what I'm wondering is has the squad and the Pyrrhic media popularity on hashtag this, hashtag that really driven the regular Virginia Democrat off the reservation? Do you sense that from where you sit?
Well, yeah, I don't think they can embrace that. We'll have to see how Terry McAuliffe runs, won't we? Is your assumption that he's got the nomination locked up if he wants it?
Yeah, I think he's going to
elbow Justin Fairfax out of the way.
Yeah, I think he's just going to wind up with so much money coming into it, so much name recognition that if he wants it, and it may even be a reaction to Justin Fairfax and the Democrats not wanting to, be stuck with somebody who, is going to, again, have to answer for the assault questions on a statewide level. So they're so much better at this, Kerry, than Republicans. Yeah. They'll quietly get Justin in a back room and say, we're going to make you Secretary of Transportation. You're going to have so much pork money to give away to people. You don't want to run for governor, and they'll all quietly step aside and say, hey, our guy is Terry, while the Republicans, tear each other limb from limb, and then when the decision is made, half of them stay home. Yes,
I don't know. The GOP always amazes me. They seem to be able to shoot themselves in the foot pretty regularly. I decry the time when Hampton Roads used to be really the epicenter of power in Richmond. If you remember when Frank Wagner was here and Bob McDonnell was down here and Leo Wardrop was here, Ken Stolley was from here. I mean, we had a really powerful delegation in Richmond, and now we're basically powerless, and nobody pays attention.
Have you had a chance to get to know Delegate Anderson, Rich Anderson, at all since he became chair?
No, I have not.
It seems like he's trying to bring all the sides together, which is going to have to be necessary in the Republican Party to win back the House. Do you think that Bill number 1 has to be restricting executive power to, a period of time, 30 days, as much as budgets and spending and taxes and getting the economy going need to be job one? I think the first thing they have to do is address the blind spot in the governor's executive privilege, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's any appetite for that. And do you think in this General Assembly? I mean,
oh, not this one.
No. And how would we get them to? I don't think it's going to happen. I do believe that bill was introduced in the special session, wasn't it? And it just died.
Yeah.
To restrain the governor's executive orders. If the Republicans get into power somehow in Richmond, they've got to do that, or they lose all credibility. You've got to. A governor should never be allowed to have an emergency order that goes beyond 30 days without coming back to the General Assembly.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and getting their permission to extend it. This is the situation we're living under is absolutely bizarre. At this point, we have 53.6% of all confirmed COVID deaths in Virginia have been in nursing homes, and not one thing that the governor has enacted has protected people in nursing homes. Not one thing.
Well,
Nothing.
and we have
The curfew doesn't help them.
school districts that did go back to in-person classes with hardly any outbreaks at all. So what's Fairfax doing, and what so these
Well,
others?
Fairfax they have the AFT up there. They have an actual teachers union in addition to the Education Association. And at one point, they were saying they didn't want to go back until September of 2021. I mean, those kids would be out of school for a year and a half. How do you ever catch up? And the private schools around here, I don't know what it's like in Charlottesville. The Catholic schools are packed.
Mm-hmm.
They filled this has been the best thing that could ever happen to Catholic schools, which are struggling a little bit. They're packed. There's no outbreaks. The prep schools around here are back. They're semi-normal. They're not having outbreaks.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to people in these schools all the time. They're doing fine.
It's interesting. Wouldn't that be data that the governor could supposedly follow?
Well, to be fair to the governor, he has left it up to the school districts to do what they want to do. That insane order to close all schools in March, I thought that was crazy. I mean, private schools, he just about could have bankrupted them at that point. Who wants to pay however much private school costs these days to have your kids sitting at home drooling, looking at a computer screen all day? But he's left it up to the school districts, and they're just not reopening. Chesapeake has boldly bucked the tide. They are virtual now when they come back, I think, from Christmas for a couple of weeks. They have a very high positivity rate, but they have not been having trouble in the schools.
Right. So, it's all been coming in from the outside.
Right.
Do you think a smart school choice advocate might be able to turn some of this into a real school choice program, not like what we have now with the scholarships, a real, voucher program where a Virginia mom in Chesapeake could turn around and say, well, if you're going to close my public school and make my kid do Zoom meetings, but I could go to this private school, even if it's not parochial, let me do it. Do you think we could do that? Do you think somebody could use this to make the case?
I think so. I think at that point, the education lobby money pouring into Virginia to oppose such a thing and to portray that as some kind of a radical, crazy, far-right idea would be pretty staggering. But it has to have a lot of appetite now. There's a record, 36,000 kids have dropped out of Virginia public schools this year. They're either being homeschooled or they're in private schools. People need help. I don't understand the pro-choice people who are just not pro-choice on education.
It's limited choice.
Yeah, I'm definitely pro-choice for education. And I sent my kids, they had a mixture, but they spent time in parochial and private schools. And I was fortunate I could make, we're a two-income family. We were able to do that. Mm-hmm. I want the poor single mothers across town to have those same choices for their kids. They don't love their children any less than I love mine. They don't want their kids to have any less of an educational opportunities than I have for mine. I'm amazed at all my liberal friends who send their kids to these pricey prep schools. And when you ask them about school vouchers, like, no, we have to make the public schools better. You only get the kids for 12 years and then they're done.
Kerry, last one for you here. Old Dominion University just put out their State of the Commonwealth report, and they predict it will take at minimum 2 years to recover from from what they call COVID-19 and the pandemic. Right. But really, it's Governor North's economics. Do you see a Virginia that comes back more resilient than that if given the opportunity?
Well, yeah. I think this is a terrific place to live. There's a reason I live here. I love it here. We have great jobs up in Northern Virginia, good jobs all over the state. And I think even the Democrats have done a pretty good job of bringing jobs to Virginia. But I'll tell you, the ODU economic forecast is usually right on the money, which is why that's so alarming.
Yeah.
That's Jim Cook's group, and they really know what they're talking about. And that was pretty stunning to me because Virginia seems to have weathered this economically better than some places.
Well, the
Virginia Beach had some problems because it appeared for a while that Northern was just trying to crush our tourism industry down here. But maybe he was a little angry over the Second Amendment stuff from the year before. I don't know.
Well, I guess, but at the end of it, do you think that whether it's Virginia Beach or the Blue Ridge Mountains or wherever in Virginia, what do you see changing in the Virginia economy? Is tourism as big? Is it more bed and breakfast style tourism and less big hotels? Do you see anything changing? Restaurants that won't come back, that kind of thing?
Well, restaurants are in such terrible shape, and fortunately, the governor's leaving them alone for right now. I mean, he tends to play that keep up with the despot game, and when you watch the other cities that have closed down indoor dining, if he did that, he would finish them off.
Mm-hmm.
But because of our mild climate, we can have outdoor dining and sort of that mixture that people enjoy most of the year here. There's
Right.
outdoor heaters. All the restaurants here have been very clever in converting patios and sort of sheltered places with a nice exchange of fresh air. But I was really surprised at the ODU predictions because I believe this vaccine, even the governor has said in a few months, basically we'll have it in April or so everywhere here. I mean, by then the masks come off, they better come off,
Mm-hmm.
and everything opens up and we just go back to life, don't you think?
I would hope so. I would like to see some of the warp speed turned on treatments and more discussed about how we treat people when they get COVID-19. I feel like we've wasted 8 months chasing vaccines while, every time somebody says I have a treatment and then the president says he likes it, that immediately means we have to vilify it as if it's somehow some animal cruelty or something, which maybe in January we get past that. I don't know. I think it really a pox on their house for doing it, and I think that's part and parcel of why they nearly lost the U.S. House of Representatives, Kerry.
I think the lockdowns are really discouraging to people. Most of us, I'll just give you a quick anecdote. In April of 2019, I was actually in Vietnam for a wedding and a little trip, and it was wonderful, and it was Easter, and I was so worried that I wouldn't be able to find a church there. I'm a Catholic girl. I've never spent Easter anywhere other than in a church. And I was in a little town called Hoi An. It was just near Da Nang. And I found a Catholic church, went there for one of the most beautiful services, just a lovely Easter service with a mixture of English-speaking people and a lot of Vietnamese people. It was beautiful and the weather was lovely. And I've always thought back to that and thought if somebody had walked up to me today and said, hope you enjoyed this Easter service because next year your church is going to be closed by order of your governor.
Yeah.
I would never have. I was in a communist country where 6% of the population is Christian, and I was able to worship freely and in a beautiful setting. And a year later, I'm in the state of Virginia, Thomas Jefferson's state, and I couldn't go to church on Easter. I'm sorry. I still am in disbelief over that.
The governor was sending police into churches to arrest ministers on Easter. That's just gobsmacking. Kerry Doughtery is the host of the Kerry and Mike show on 790 WNIS in the Hampton Roads area. And thank you for continuing to keep the faith.
You.
And like I said, if we can break that corner off that blue crescent in Virginia, boy, that's going to do some damage.
Wouldn't that be fun? Okay, well, let's give it our best.
Absolutely.
Give it our best shot.
Thank you so much for joining us this week
you.
on Freedom and Prosperity Radio. And thank you for tuning in for all of us here at the Virginia Institute for Public Policy. I hope you have an amazing New Year's Eve wherever you spend it. And let's look forward to 2021 and try to put 2020 behind us. Until then, till next weekend, so long and thanks for all the fish.